In the long history of the world, the planet has played host to a wide variety of ancient civilizations. There are far too many of those for any one video to cover. People make it their careers to discover and catalog the civilizations that preceded us in the modern era. Archaeologists and historians make it their life's work to learn everything there is to know about these mighty empires and kingdoms that span vast swaths of land where there are now dozens of countries. A lot of these civilizations are famous, even school children know about them. Take a look at the Roman Empire, for example. Everyone knows about the mighty Roman Empire. Julius Caesar took control of the Roman Republic and created the empire that would go on to be one of the largest empires in history at the time. It controlled practically everything in Europe and North Africa, and even parts of Asia. The Romans made amazing advancements in culture, architecture, law, and practically everything else. In fact, their legacy can even be seen in pop culture today. The American Senate is modeled off the Roman Senate, and practically every nation in the world has their own kind of wine, a Roman invention. Or take the Macedonian Empire. A lot of people don't know its name, but you almost definitely know the person who created it, Alexander the Great. At only 20, he took his father's throne. Then he began launching military expeditions, and it soon became clear that young Alexander was a brilliant tactician. Never defeated in battle, he managed to extend his vast empire across all of West Asia and North Africa, stretching all the way to Egypt and India. Like Caesar would go on to do after him, he managed to create one of the largest empires in history. Except he did it all before he even turned 30. Though he died young and his empire was split apart by his generals, he brought Greek thought, culture, and philosophy, not to mention science, to the far reaches of Inner Asia. And of course, there is the Mongol Empire, led by the fearsome Genghis Khan. The Mongols, a nomadic people from Central Asia, were divided into dozens of distinct tribes until Genghis Khan united them under one flag. And from there, they spread outward violently into the rest of Asia, conquering China, Korea, Eastern Europe, and practically all of Asia. In doing so, they created the largest empire in history and killed somewhere near 40 million people in their conquests, 10% of the world's population at the time. But they also created a safe trade route from China to Europe, what is now known as the Silk Road, and their innovations with cavalry would go on to inform warfare using horses for the next 800 years. Moving out of Asia, there are also the legendary Mayans. The Mayans were more of a loose confederation of different tribes, working together to advance a common civilization. They didn't conquer as much land as the others, only one area in Central America, but they crafted a complex society with laws, civic duties, social rules, and extremely advanced religious rites and architecture. If you go to South America today, you can still see the remnants of their empire. Step pyramids that look sort of like ziggurats, deep in the South American jungle interior. They invented astronomy, calendars, writing, and many forms of art like mosaics, all without contact with European society. Needless to say, the advancements empires have made throughout history are so important, we use them in our daily lives all the time. And we know a lot about these ancient empires too. How could we not? They've made massive impacts on the planet and population, not to mention religion, culture, law, society as a whole. But what if there was an empire on the planet that was larger and more advanced than all of the ones we just looked through? And not just more advanced by a little bit. So advanced that they were creating nuclear reactors well before Alexander was taking his first steps, or Plutarch was trying to complete a history of the Greeks. So advanced that we still don't totally understand what they were capable of. I'd certainly call that anomalous, wouldn't you? And that's not all. What if this empire also managed to stay hidden from modern science for centuries? They didn't stay alive, but their ruins have never been found by the scientific community. Their relics have been squirreled away from the eyes of the world over the decades. You'd never find a reference to the Mechanite Empire in a history textbook or in a museum, and that's for a very good reason. The SCP Foundation has spent an extremely large amount of time and money ensuring that the evidence of this ancient empire never comes out to the rest of the world. But even if a culture creates anomalies, is the culture itself anomalous? Does it need to be contained? Especially if they're all long dead and their technology has degraded into unusability. Well, maybe. Except their technology is doing just fine. 2,000 years and counting, their technology is still working perfectly. in some cases better than our modern devices. How can that be possible? How can that not be anomalous? Well, as unbelievable as it might seem, it's true. We'll dive more into what exactly this empire out of Greece was in a bit, but for now we're going to look at an SCP file associated with them. Except this one couldn't be picked up, stuffed in a box, and shipped off to a containment locker in Site-19. You'll see why in a minute. But for now, let's just take a look at the file. SCP-2406 lacks any images or flashy documentation, so no clues there. Unless it's not possible to photograph the anomaly for some reason. The object class is safe, and the containment procedures aren't very long. A site, Provisional Site-31, has been constructed around SCP-2406 and is under the cover of a Kazakhstani military base. Provisional sites are temporary sites that the Foundation puts up in the field to contain an anomaly that can't easily be transported somewhere else for containment. And if it's a Kazakhstani military facility, the anomaly is probably somewhere in Kazakhstan and can't be moved. Seems reasonable enough. All personnel who work directly with SCP-2406 are required to wear a Type A hazmat suit when in contact with the anomaly, and to undergo a full decontamination bath upon exiting. Whatever SCP-2406 is, being in direct contact with it can be dangerous to humans. So the Foundation uses specialized hazardous material suits, the big yellow jumpsuits you see near radiation or chemical spill sites. On top of that, an armed contingent of guards are to remain in place in and around Provisional Site-31 to ensure no one unauthorized accesses the anomaly. Though you'd have to wonder why anyone would try to access a military base. The containment procedures close out by declaring that anyone wanting to directly interact with SCP-2406-1, whatever it is, needs to get authorization from their site director. So, SCP-2406 has at least one sub-anomaly to deal with. Obviously, the Foundation is very interested in keeping this anomaly, or these anomalies, secret and protected at all costs, as well as limiting human exposure to something potentially dangerous. Now, let's take a look at the description. SCP-2406 is a mechanical automaton that's 93 meters tall and weighs approximately 210 metric tons. For the Americans among us, that's about 300 feet in height and 230 tons, over 450,000 pounds. No wonder the Foundation couldn't move it. After investigating, research concluded that SCP-2406 wasn't sentient, so it wasn't a robot or cyborg or artificial intelligence. An automaton is a machine to perform a specific task, and this thing, whatever it is, was controlled by at least 6 different operators, if not more. They piloted the machine using 160 different valves and levers within the torso, head, and chest of the automaton. And if it has a head and chest, it has limbs. Limbs that were controlled by a combination of pneumatics, hydraulics, and clockwork machinery. But controlling is one thing. How the heck does something like this get the power to move? The answer is a nuclear reactor embedded in its torso, with power cables running to its arms and legs. Yep, unbelievable as it may seem, this ancient curiosity was powered by the same source our modern aircraft carriers and nuclear submarines use. SCP-2406 was discovered on August 7, 1985, in the Aralkum Desert, but not by the Foundation. The Aralkum Desert used to be part of the Aral Sea before the Soviets drained part of it. It was during one of these drainings that the Russian military discovered SCP-2406 by tracking the radiation coming from it. As soon as they realized what they found wasn't some sort of abandoned warhead or uranium deposit, they called in the GRU's P Division, the unit of the Soviet government who dealt with anomalies, in the same way the Foundation did. They kept custody of the anomaly, but only for a few years. When the USSR collapsed in 1991, the Foundation stepped in with their agents and took control of the anomaly while everyone else in the area was busy dealing with the political fallout. They immediately began performing research and learned that the material SCP-2406 is made of isn't just one metal, but a toughened alloy of copper, zinc, nickel, lead, and iron. The mixture is why the metal looks bronze, despite not having any bronze in it. They also found 2 markings on it. One was on the outside of its back and showed the Aegean numeral for 9. Does that mean there are at least 8 more of these things buried somewhere? Maybe, but the Foundation hasn't found any of them. What's more interesting is that the numeral is Aegean, Greek, despite SCP-2406 lying in a lake in the Aral Sea, pretty far from Greece. The front of the anomaly, its chest, has an intricate symbol of a hammer striking an anvil on it. The right arm of the anomaly has a nozzle with piping attached to it. The piping leads to a pressurized chamber within SCP-2406 that is empty. But the Foundation did manage to find trace residue of various chemicals, such as pine resin, naphtha, quicklime, calcium phosphide, and sulfur inside the corners of the tank. Not coincidentally, those are the exact same chemicals used to create Greek fire, a primitive chemical weapon similar to napalm that the ancient Greeks used in warfare. Between this and the Aegean numeral, the Foundation judged that SCP-2406 was almost definitely constructed in Greece and brought here for some reason. The left arm of the anomaly isn't attached to it. In fact, initial reports said it was torn off at the shoulder and couldn't be found with the rest of it. But it seems that the Foundation managed to recover it since, detailed in one of the addenda in the file. Chemicals weren't the only thing they found inside SCP-2406. When they busted the main access plate open, researchers found something decidedly more morbid. 6 different human skeletons located inside its torso area were removed and cataloged before being carbon dated to 1100 BC, over 3,000 years old. And they were all wearing an extremely strange set of armor. While it looked Greek, it was made of a strange lead-copper alloy and filled with asbestos lining. Presumably, the armor was designed to absorb the radiation put out by SCP-2406's reactor. There were also tubes from the helmets leading to the outside, so they could breathe safe air. One of the levers pumped water into the tubes so that the pilots didn't die of thirst, and another tube was near the groin, probably so they could pee. Seems like the designers ensuring that whoever was piloting SCP-2406 could do so for hours or days. The Foundation ensured through testing that SCP-2406 doesn't work. The limbs don't move, and many of the levers have rusted or broken. All of that damage from disuse is repairable, but there is even more extensive damage from combat. The limbs and head were first discovered run through by long, sharp spikes made of an unknown substance. Though it feels like chitin, its molecular structure is closer to coral, and on top of that, it's biological and contains some elements of human DNA. Parts of its limbs are also crushed or indented with a segmented pattern, like a boa constrictor wrapping around its prey. The evidence suggests that SCP-2406 was in an intense fight with some sort of giant monster and lost. But that's all in the past. SCP-2406 also has a more present problem: its reactor. It melted through the back of the anomaly, penetrating the Earth, and seems to still be burning incredibly hot and radioactive nearly a kilometer under the surface. Engineers think that when it was intact, it works similarly to natural nuclear reactions rather than modern reactors, like when a uranium deposit begins to undergo fission. If nothing else, it means that SCP-2406's designers were studying those, and were far more advanced scientifically than any other culture on the face of the planet at the time that we know of. While they were investigating the wreck, Foundation personnel also discovered something interesting: a watertight ceramic jar, like the ones ancient Egyptians used to preserve organs. When they broke the seal, they found 2 tightly bound scrolls written in a unique language resembling Mycenaean Greek. It took 10 years of research for the Foundation's best linguists to translate the scrolls. What they found confirmed their theory. The scrolls were religious and written by a group called the Followers of Mecane, the ancient precursors to what we now call the infamous Church of the Broken God, an anomalous cult that seeks to rebuild their deity and make themselves more than human. The Foundation's had run-ins with them in the past, but the documents indicate that 3,000 years ago, they weren't just a cult, they were an empire. The first scroll was translated to the following: "The Colossi were constructed in her schema. The Colossi were constructed to defend, secure, contain the enemy, Grand Karcist Ion, betrayer of man, destroyer of progress, sorcerer king of Aritum, a desolate domain of failed and fallen creation, built with the body's flesh of dead gods. Upon a throne of black ambition the enemy plots. The enemy is not a priest, they are a merchant, and they have sold the whole world totality. The Colossi were constructed in her schema. The Colossi were constructed to defend, secure, contain. The profane tools must be broken, uncreated. Drink deep the silver blood of Mecane. May her sacrifice not be in vain." Strange, but definitely religious. It seems to be a dedication to the broken god Mechane. The Colossi were created to fight their ancient enemy, the Sarkists. But the second document is much more interesting. This is a testament of Matriarch Eupraxia, legate's faithful, servant of Mechane. I am not a warrior, but all warriors are dead, breaking themselves upon the enemy's host. The enemy has set their plan into motion. The Sorcerer King surrounds himself with corpses. To fight is to grow his legions. Egypt retreats from the world. The Hittites have fallen into chaos. The conspirators of Crete have sacrificed their own. The Aegean have fallen into barbarism. The city of 1,000 pillars is forever lost, has always been lost. Even the Deva grow desperate, with the enemy at their border. The center collapses, kingdoms crumble, the damage is done. The light of reason flickers and wanes. But Mechane sacrificed herself so that we might be free. We refuse to return to that darkness. We would rather die. But the siege at Euros was won. We must strike while the metal is hot, and thus we march for Kythera, at the end of all things. We have crossed the wine-dark sea. We have seen villages ravaged by the Red Death. We have seen the dead, the dying, and the deathless. We cast the accursed to holy flame. We enter his desolate domain. And in our left hand we carry our answer. We cannot undo what has been done, but we can delay the Sarkic dawn. So it seems that the ancient Mechanite Empire were once at war with another empire, the hated Sarkists. Losing and all their allies dying, they poured their resources into these massive mechs and sent them deep into enemy territory, equipped with some sort of doomsday weapon as a hope for success. What happens next is, unfortunately, a mystery. On December 12th of 1998, the Foundation found something almost 30 kilometers away from SCP-2406 during a routine patrol. At first, the researchers were confused. Had they found another wreck, one of the other 8 mentioned? Or perhaps the body of the mysterious creature SCP-2406 had fallen in battle with? But after excavating it, they realized they had found something they hadn't even been looking for to begin with. SCP-2406's left arm. The way it landed suggested that it had been torn off during the battle and hurled away. But what monster could possibly throw something that heavy 30 entire kilometers? Either way, what the Foundation found attached to SCP-2406's arm is much more interesting. The researchers aren't sure what it is, but it's much different from the rest of SCP-2406. It seems to be some kind of weapon, but one that's not made of any metals on Earth, and with an incredibly anomalous design. The Foundation personnel, not sure of what to make of it, designated it SCP-2406-1. Its purpose is similarly unknown, and the consensus seems to be that whatever it is, it far exceeds human understanding. But what the Foundation is sure of is that it seems to bend reality near it, though they're not sure how because it doesn't seem to affect anything. The Foundation's best minds are stumped by it. All they can say for certain is that if it was ever repaired, powered up, and activated, it could do unprecedented damage to local reality. So interaction with it was highly regulated, and the Foundation put it away with the rest of SCP-2406. Now go check out SCP-2217 Hammer and Anvil, and SCP-001 The Broken God Ouroboros Cycle for more anomalous mechanite madness from SCP Explained.